Well, I would like to welcome you all to this Manage Engine webinar. The AD Solutions team is very glad that you took a little bit of time out of your day to join us for what we consider to be one of the hottest topics in the industry right now, which is all around security. And really what we've tried to do is we've tried to build not only one, but an entire suite of resources for organizations and Active Directory administrators to get information about how to really harden the security of your Active Directory environment, not only of your domain controllers, but also your Windows servers. So we have a little bit of time with you this morning. For some of you it's the afternoon, and for some it's even the evening, and we want to try to get you as much information as possible and point you to some resources. Just to get you a little bit of information about me, since you'll be hearing me talk for the next hour, just wanted to give you a heads up. That is my real email address, and I love questions. Actually, all of us at AD Solutions team love questions because it's a way for us to really get an idea of what you're struggling with and try to get you solutions the best that we can. So please email me whenever possible with questions about this webinar, or really just general questions about Active Directory security and group policy whenever you get a chance. Love to hear you on that. I have been an MVP, a most valuable professional from Microsoft, for the last 13 years. I'm currently an Active Directory MVP, but I've gone back and forth between Active Directory and group policy in those 13 years. And really what the MVP provides for you is a direct link into Microsoft. I know the people that make the decisions on Active Directory and group policy and can get questions to the people that make decisions on security. So if you have any comments, questions, suggestions about the current or future of Microsoft, please email me those, and I'd be more than happy to send those up the chain directly into Microsoft. I also want to point you to some resources, and I think that these resources are extremely valuable. Unfortunately, this Auditing Windows Expert page is a little bit under construction, so I'm going to point you away from that one. But the other two links, the resources here, are extremely powerful in what it provides for you. The security hardening site is by far one of the most powerful sites that you can go to with regard to what we're looking for. So let me give you a little bit of background on this site, and then I'm going to catapult that into what we're talking about today. Last year, in the May timeframe, I heard a video from Microsoft where a Microsoft person was talking at TechEd. And in this video, they were talking about the next generation of Active Directory and some of the security features, and I was just floored with some of the information that was in this video. Now, if you go to our website, this manageengine.com website, click on Active Directory, and then go to this security hardening for Active Directory, you will be sent to this security hardening mini site that I'm talking about. And if you scroll down in here, there is a link to a video, and I highly encourage that you go watch this video after this webinar. This video gives you information about what Microsoft is doing with regard to next generation Active Directory security. And I think you, like myself, will be a little bit disturbed and floored with what information you hear. Now, how does that fit into today's webinar? Well, after watching this video, the AD Solutions team kind of grouped together, and we built this website that you're looking at, and we also put together a tremendous amount of blogs and videos that can help you better organize your Active Directory security. So if you come down to the bottom of this site, you'll see all these different areas, and they all expand, you'll see here. And what we've done is put together blogs and videos to help you get the job done. And when I say get the job done, I mean harden your Windows environment. So this is really what today is about this site. And it's about this site because we want to make sure that you have the information that you need in order to be successful with hardening windows. Now, not only do we have the security hardening site, we also have, if I come back over here and go back to the main page, if you come over here to community on our main page and then go to community Active Directory, you have even more information with regard to Active Directory. And this is not only a blog related to our products, this is a blog related to Active Directory and how to better get solutions for your environment. So we really have a lot of great information for you, and these are things that we are providing to you as a service because we feel that security is so important. Now, how does that fit into today? Well, a couple of things about today's webinar. We only have a little bit under an hour with you, so we had to pick and choose some different areas that we thought were very important to make sure that we cover. All the information related to hardening Windows security is on that website, including auditing information. So a couple of webinars that we've had some comments that we didn't cover every aspect of security hardening in the hour that we were together, but that's because there's only so much information you can cover in an hour. So that's why I point you to those resources, and please go look at those resources. I've also given you my email, so if you have any questions, please reach out to us and we'd be happy to do that. Finally, on this webinar, as you pose questions on your right-hand toolbar, or it may be somewhere else on your page, you should have a link to ask questions. Please utilize that whenever possible. The entire AD Solutions team is kind of behind me here answering those questions for you. So if you want to see the other questions that are being posed, please, all of you should be able to read those questions and see the answers to those questions as we go through the webinar. And again, at the end, any questions, please send them to us. So let's get on with today, and let's talk about some different security areas within Windows and Active Directory that we need to focus on. So I'm going to cover local users and groups because this is an area that is missed very often, and it's an area that is very important, especially with the attack vectors that are occurring in most Windows environments. We also need to look at Active Directory privileged groups and understand what a privileged group is and how do we harden that. Excuse me. Third, we're going to look at user rights. Again, another area that I find is omitted from most audit programs. Compliance requires that you look at user rights, but many organizations, many auditors don't do that. We also need to look at the administrator account itself. And then another area that I find is left off of most audits, left off of most security hardening guides, is Active Directory delegation. And the reason for that is it's extremely complex to configure and even more complex to actually report. So at the end of today, I'm going to give you solutions on how you can do this very easily, even with Microsoft built-in tools, to get information about the delegation. And then finally, something that I think hounds all of us, which is service accounts. And service accounts are accounts that are very important to our organization, but we have to harden them. So how do we do that? Well, let's talk about the first topic, which is local users and groups. Now, in your Windows machines, these are your servers and your workstations. You have administrators group, and the administrators group can contain local users as well as domain users and domain groups. As soon as a computer joins Active Directory, the domain admins group is placed inside of the administrators group on whatever machine it is, whether it's a server or a workstation. So immediately you have domain users that have administrator privileges on every server in your environment. Now, that's important to understand because of attacks that are occurring like pass the hash and pass the ticket and all of these other attacks. Because we need to make sure that we secure, we harden these administrator groups and the accounts. Now, in order to do this, we have to have the right tools. Now, I have an environment with me here, and if we go over to my environment, I have a Windows 7 machine, and it doesn't matter if it's Windows 7 or Server 2012 or Server 2008, it's still just a computer that's joined to the domain. Now, if I have the right credentials, which right now I am not logged on as the person that has the right credentials, but quickly I can log off and log back on. So let's say that I'm going to log on as Derek. Now, Derek is a domain admin. And when Derek comes to a computer, Derek is able to see everything on the computer. So right now, Derek is going to be logged on as the local administrator, which gives Derek the ability to see what's going on this machine. Now, if I come over here to my local users and groups and I go to my groups administrators, you will see that I have some accounts in here that are listed. But if I do this, that means I have to go to every single machine. But it's not only administrators, it's also backup operators. I have remote desktop users that can remotely connect in. So I not only have the administrators group on every machine, I also have other groups which are very important in order for me to make sure that I know who has elevated privileges. Because really what we're talking about with local users and groups is who has elevated privileges on the machine so that we can make sure that we report on them and secure them. Well, let's talk about this process of how to harden a machine. We feel that there are 5 steps for every security control for you to harden your machine. Step 1 is to report. Reporting is not always easy because we need to have tools that are efficient as well as tools that are thorough and give us the correct information. So for example, if we're looking at local users and groups, we can look at a tool like our free Active Directory tool. We could look at PowerShell. I just showed you the local accounts manager. You could use that as well, but we want to make sure that we get a tool that gets us information quickly and it gets us information correctly. So if we go back to our free tool, which you can download this from our website, again, everything in here is absolutely free. We'll come back in here and look at service accounts in just a minute, but we can come in here and point to a machine and we can say, all right, we want to know who has membership in the administrators group on that machine. We can look at who has backup operator. We can quickly look to see all these particular groups and who has membership in these groups. So this is a tool that you can utilize to report on some of this information. So here I've given you the free Active Directory Manager tool to report on local users and groups, because again, when I get the local users and groups, I can also manage them. So I can see some different information about these users that are configured on that machine. So here we have some different tools. Now, how can we monitor some of these? Well, the monitoring of the local users and groups can be done with a tool like AD Audit Plus. Now, how does monitoring fit into the 5 steps? Well, we feel that the 5 steps for hardening security in Windows is reporting as step 1, analyzing as step 2, and configuration as step 3, configuring the correct security. Now, again, let me repeat those if you want to write those down. Reporting, analyzing, and configuring. Once you have the security configured, you only need to know if it changes. Well, how do we know if things change? Well, that's when we need a monitoring solution. So a monitoring solution could be a tool like AD Audit Plus. So if I come in here to AD Audit Plus and I go to Server Audit, I can come down here and I can look at Object Management. And Object Management can tell me when particular machines are being modified and what's being modified. So I could add in here my servers and my workstations, and I can actually monitor when things are changing on computers throughout my environment. Now, could I set up alerts? Absolutely. And alerting, which I'll show you in some of the other configurations, is also very powerful because monitoring requires that you manually go in and look at a report. Alerting is an action that's taken on something that changes, and you're being notified of that. So these are the steps: reporting, analyzing, configuring, monitoring, and alerting that we all need to follow to make sure that we get good security configurations and good security hardening. So let's move on and talk about the second topic, which is directly Active Directory related. We have groups within Active Directory which have privileges. Now, we're going to have three different categories of these groups. The three different categories of these groups, the first one is the default groups. So if I go back to my Active Directory environment, I go to Active Directory users and computers, and then I go to my users container, you will see that I have some default groups that have privileges, such as domain admins, enterprise admins, schema admins, DNS admins, cert publishers, and the like. But I also have what are called built-in groups like account operators, administrators, backup operators, which have elevated privileges. So these are groups that when you install Active Directory, immediately are granted privileges within Active Directory as well as on your servers in the environment. So these default groups are things that every organization has. Now the next two groups are unique per organization. The second type of privilege group is an application or service group. Now examples of this might be SQL admins or Exchange admins or SharePoint admins. When you install an application, then you might actually have one of these groups, and these groups have elevated privileges. A final list of groups are custom groups. Now if we go back to my Active Directory environment, you will see that I have finance and finance accounts groups. I have executives, right? Execs. I have engineering. So some of these groups in my world actually have elevated privileges. So here I have a help desk and I have help desk technicians. So all of these groups are not groups that were created by an application. They weren't here by default in Active Directory. These are groups that you have that are custom to your organization. And every Active Directory has these groups because an admin at some point went in and said we need to organize these groups. Well, with regard to privileged groups, first and foremost, we need to make sure that we report on the groups. Now, the reporting on these groups is extremely important because these groups have usually nested groups in them. So if we go back to my Active Directory environment, and I'm going to pick on my group administrators here, and I go to members, I could take a screenshot of this to report on my group members. But as we can see, that would not be enough because I not only have users in this group, I have groups within the group. So I have nested groups. Now, if we have a lot of time, and possibly we're being paid by the hour, we could go in and we could also go to domain admins, and under domain admins go to members and get a screen capture of this. But I think that's going to take too much time. And unfortunately, Microsoft does not have a tool, there's not even any tool in here to help us document recursive groups and their members. So what are we going to do at this point? Well, let's walk over to another tool that you may or may not have, which I've installed here. Now, I'm going to get on my PowerShell bandwagon here just for a minute and talk to you about PowerShell and what's important about PowerShell. PowerShell is important to every Active Directory administrator because it's important to Microsoft. Microsoft is putting all of their eggs in the PowerShell basket, which means that you need to understand PowerShell at least to a certain degree. I find that one way to learn more about PowerShell, especially for Active Directory administrators, is to go download the Active Directory module and start to play around with it. Now, when you download the Active Directory module and launch it, you still only get the PowerShell interface. But this PowerShell interface can sometimes be a little bit difficult to work around in. Now, the number one command for PowerShell is get help. And you type get help space and then type whatever you want. So I'm going to type group. Now, PowerShell is powerful. PowerShell is intelligent, but it's not always the most intelligent thing. For example, when I type get help group, it gives me the group object and how I control that. But this isn't what I want. I want the Active Directory group. But remember, we're in the Active Directory module. So if I do get help AD group, I actually get a listing of commands, this is what really the group should do, that are related to Active Directory groups. Now, if I do get help on get AD group member, see that here, group member, you will see that I have a list of commands that I can run, and one of them is recursive. Okay, so if I do now get AD group member for administrators, recursive, it will get me a listing of all of the users that are in the administrators group recursively, meaning not only just the users that are in the group, but the users that are in the nested group. Now, you can see that once you learn this, okay, it's really not that bad, but getting to this point kind of was painful. And some of you that have never used PowerShell, you're thinking, why would I ever do this? I'm better off just to manually do it. And yeah, I understand. PowerShell is not the most intuitive environment and certainly not the easiest to work with. So again, that's why I'm giving you multiple solutions. A better solution, in my opinion, would be a tool like AD Manager. In AD Manager, I simply go to my Active Directory reports, I see group reports, I see group members, I want to get detailed information, I want to get the users and the groups, and I want to select the administrator's account, and I generate, and these are all the users. Now, I don't know about you, but for me, this is about 100 times easier than trying to use PowerShell. But I want to give you an idea of the solutions that are out there and the requirements that are needed for this. You have to get groups and their members recursively in order to report correctly. Now that I have this list, I can actually export it, which again, PowerShell doesn't really do this. I can export this to a PDF, share it with everyone that has say in who should be an administrators. That's the analysis. Once I get the feedback, I configure it, and now all I have to do is monitor. Well, how do I monitor group membership? Now, not only group membership, just groups that have privileged access. Well, that's when you need a tool to do that. I have a tool called AD Audit Plus. I go to my reports. I have a built-in report that's called Modified Admin Groups. And here is a report on all of the groups that have elevated privileges that have changed. And you will see I know all the details around these groups and their changes. But this is not really the end. Remember, we have 5 steps. Analyze, configure, monitor, and alert. What I want is if someone were to go into Active Directory, go to the domain admins group, actually let's pick on enterprise admin. If someone were to go to the enterprise admin group and add in a user, you'll see the user right there and I apply it. I want that reported back to me. I want, right here you will see that BART is added. This is an alert. Every alert in AD Audit Plus also has an email option. So if I go to my alerts, I go to my alert profiles, and I look at my modified groups. somewhere it's here. Oh, there it is, modified admin group. You will see that I can send an email. This is the power of security hardening. Most administrators, most organizations think that security hardening is only the first 3 steps. Well, the first 3 steps only get you to a point in time. I want past the point in time to be known and secured. That's where monitoring and alerting comes in, and it's extremely powerful. But remember, I'm going to go up 1 slide. Privileged groups includes more than just the default groups. It includes all these other groups. Well, how do I report on those? That's not a problem at all. If you go back to my report here on modified admin groups, first and foremost, notice I can go back in time. I can go back to the last 6 months and get a listing of all the groups. You will notice that in my list, I not only have domain admins and enterprise admins, I have finance managers. You may not even have a finance manager group. How did I get that in my report? The customization of the tool is extremely important. If I go to configuration, group modification, modified admin groups, I can add in any group that I want right here. This is the power of security hardening. This is where you need to be. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to think about this in your environment. I want you to think about your domain admins group. I'm going to ask you some questions, and I want you to think about this. First of all, when was the last time that domain admins in your organization changed membership? Was it yesterday? Was it last week, last month, in the last 6 months, in the last year? If you don't know the answer to that, that's a problem. You should be able to go to a report, and in the time frame that you're looking at, you should be able to do a quick search to see if domain admins changed membership, and it hasn't. I know that in my environment right here, if I do a quick search on domain admins, I know that domain admins changed on December 7th. That's almost 2 months ago. You need a tool to help you with this. You need a tool that's going to give you this insight. If you don't have a tool, then how do you know what the current state of domain admins is? You're going to manually go look at that report every time? You don't have time for that. That's why many organizations are askew. They have drift with their security settings. If you have monitoring and reporting on top, you don't. Okay? User rights. Now, I'm going to ask you the same question. When was the last time that you reported on user rights for your domain controllers and servers and ensured that they were secured? This is important. Why is it important? Well, let's go look at user rights. If I go look at a listing of user rights for this domain controller, you will see that I have user rights that cover everything from adding workstations to the domain, logging on locally, backing up files, creating a token, and even options like logging on as a batch or a service. These are very powerful configurations. So what we need to do is we need to make sure that we are reporting correctly and we're getting the information configured, and then from that point, monitoring and alerting to make sure that we have these things configured properly. Because if we don't do this, we are missing some of the most important aspects of the configurations. So how do we do this? Well, there are a couple of built-in tools that are really awesome for the initial reporting. We do not want to utilize group policy for this. So let's go back to my environment and let me walk you through some different things. If I go to group policy management here, you will see that under domain controllers, I have the default domain controller policy, and inside of this default domain controller policy, which is default configurations, under security settings, I have user rights assignment. Now, these are the user rights that Microsoft assigns out of the box. You cannot do a report on this group policy object, because here I could do settings and I could get this report right here for user rights and I could print this out. But how do I know if this is actually on the machine? I don't. It's too complex. I could have other GPOs which supersede this, which is too complicated. So I do not recommend that you use group policy management. Instead, what I recommend is you use a built-in tool, seccpol.msc. It's on the slide and it's right here. I'll give you a second to digest that. Security policy is a tool that's built into every Windows machine, and it gives you the ability to see the actual settings on the machine. The group policy object is a file. There is no guarantee that that file is applied to the machine. Instead, we want to report on the machine. And this is what we're doing here. This report tells me every configuration that's configured for user rights. I can even right-click here and I can export this list. Now what you will see is that some of these configurations have groups, administrators. How do I know who's in administrators? Well, now we go back to the original configuration we were talking about with groups, and we have to get the group members recursively. Now do you see how it all fits together? When you start looking at security hardening, you have to have an entire tool belt of solutions. If you don't, you're going to be behind the 8 ball and you're going to be stuck frantically trying to get the right reports. So what I'm trying to guide you through is which reports help you get your answers faster, because efficiency is important here. And it's not only for compliance. Compliance is important. I completely understand that. When an auditor knocks on your door, when an audit is going on, you have to generate compliance reports. But what I'm saying is beyond that, we as administrators need to make sure that we get the correct information to the auditor and we get the correct information to ourselves so that we secure our environments. So first and foremost, we have this idea of SecPol. And SecPol gets us the information we need. Another tool that we have is RSOP. Now, the resultant set of policy tool is a little bit different than RSOP. So if I come in here and I run RSOP on the same computer, it's going to go out and it's going to determine the resultant set of policy. Now, if I come under my Windows settings, my security settings, you will see that I have user rights. Okay. Now, first of all, I have a couple of errors for some reason. Let's see. Let's try to find a configuration that says not, oh, here, these are perfect. Look at this. So notice that my option for debug, create symbolic link. This is my RSOP, and it says not defined. Over here, it says administrators. But wait a minute. How in the world does one report say not defined and the other one give me information about groups? Well, RSOP is resultant set of policy only from GPOs and Active Directory. This setting's local. You can see right here that icon means group policy from Active Directory. This is a local setting. This is a local setting. This is a local setting. And all of these say not defined because this can't report on it. My point is, you have to use the right tool. If you don't use the right tool, you don't get the right information. In this case, the right tool is not resultant set of policy. The right tool is SecPol. Do you see what I'm driving at here? We as admins are responsible for making sure that we get the right information out of the system. Using the right tool is extremely powerful for this. Now, once we report, we then analyze by getting the groups recursively, then we configure properly. Once we have everything configured properly, we simply need to monitor and alert. So now I can come down here and I can get a listing of user right changes. So somewhere in here, let's see if I can find it quickly, there is a report for user right changes. User permissions, I thought it was under my reports here. It's in here somewhere. User right assignment changes, right here. Okay? In the last 30 days, I don't have any. What about the last 6 months? Yes, I do. Not only do I have information about it, I have details about what changed. Tell me this isn't powerful. This is what we need. This is the information that we need. Now, this is within Active Directory group policy, but I also can come over here to my server audit. I can go under my server audit reports, and under policy change, I would see if there's any changes to user rights. So what we need to understand is that if we get the right tools in place and we use the right tools for reporting and monitoring and alerting, we can get a complete view of our security in Active Directory and our Windows servers in real time. I mean, imagine if you have a user right change that's occurring in group policy affecting a domain controller or a server. How do you see that? How do you even understand that that changed, even if you're not looking at that from a compliance standpoint? You're never looking at it. How important is it? How important is it for someone to be able to change the system time on a server? I think it's pretty important, because I can bring down a server. I can bring down the entire organization if I change it on a domain controller by changing the system time. So we need to think broader with this concept of security hardening. Now, if we move on and talk about another area, we need to talk about the administrator account. Now, I've just written a couple of different blogs on this concept, and I'm really talking about how to secure your environment just with configurations, which is the third step. So let's go to step one, all right? Step one is the administrator account itself. How do we understand this administrator account? Well, the administrator account, we need to make sure that we see if it's been renamed or not. Now, in my environment, it's been renamed, and it's been renamed to, I believe, James Bond. Let's go look. So I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to go to AD Manager, and I'm going to go to AD Reports. I'm going to go to User Reports, All Users, and right here you will see a user, JK, called James Bond. Now, James Bond in my environment is the built-in administrator account, okay? Now, these built-in administrator account, I know that because of the SID. So I could come over here and I can get a listing of the SIDs, and I can actually see that James Bond right here has 500, okay? So first and foremost, you need a tool that can quickly show you the SID of all users. Could I use Active Directory and users' computers for this? Well, you could come in here. Here's James Bond. If I go to properties of James Bond, well, I really don't see the object SID anywhere. I'd actually have to go to the attribute editor, and in the attribute editor, come down here to user SID and dig that out. Let's see, security identifier, SID history. It's in here somewhere, right? Notice, isn't this fun, right? So instead of going through this process, why not use a tool that's designed to do it? because what we have to do is report to make sure we know who the default administrator, because we need to rename it. And you can see I've renamed it here. After I've renamed it, then we need to make sure that we create another account called administrator, because we need to make sure that the administrator is there. And why do we want to make sure that the administrator account is there? Well, what we want to do is, from this point forward, we want to run reports on whether or not the account is actually being used. So here you will see my administrator 500 modifications, and I want to know if this account is being used at all. And in the last 6 months, it hasn't been changed. We also have login reports that allow you to go in and look for logon failures, and we can actually look for certain names to see if there's been logon failures. What is this going to tell us? Well, this is going to tell us if someone is trying to log on as administrator. Well, if someone tries to log on as administrator, what does that tell you about your environment? Well, that tells you that someone is trying to hack in because we've created a honeypot for this account. Do you see the full circle? If you only report and configure correctly, but you don't monitor and alert afterwards for what you've configured, how do you know if you're being attacked? You don't. You need to have the correct tools in place, such as logon failures based on users, and you need to be able to go in and look and see if someone's trying to attack you to understand this full picture. So these are things that we at Manage Engine are trying to educate. And again, if you go to that website, if you go to my blogs, you will see that we are educating around this and how to fully secure, fully harden your environments. Now, another area that I want to talk about, which is rarely, if ever, looked at, is Active Directory delegation. Now, this idea of Active Directory delegation has been around in Active Directory since the onset back in 2000. Now, Active Directory delegation, as you see on the slide, as we all probably know, is the ability to grant privileges over certain tasks in Active Directory to only certain users to perform those tasks. So, common delegations are the ability to reset passwords, to modify properties, to unlock an account, to modify group membership. Now, the way that we grant delegations in Active Directory is that we go to a particular OU, we run the delegate control wizard, and we add in who we want to control the task. So we're going to give the HD techs privileges to reset passwords. And you can see here there's some other options. Now, when this configuration is done, it's very difficult to see what happened. Now, if we go to HR and we go to the security tab for the properties of HR, we will see that HD techs are here, but we really don't know what permissions are granted because they're special. So if we go to advanced, you see the drill down here? We have 2 entries, not 1, but 2. And then we have to go to edit to see the exact settings. This is painful. This is not a solution for reporting. And if any of you are doing this, I need you to stop. I need you to stop, because this is not an efficient way of reporting on the ACLs, the access control lists, of what's been delegated in Active Directory. This is just, it's too cumbersome. It's way too manual. Even though this information is important, we have to report on it, we need to have something that is going to give us better insight. So one of the I want to show you, a built-in tool that every single domain controller has, is called DS-ACLs. Now, DS-ACLs, as you see here, has a lot of information, but basically DS-ACLs just says put in the path of the Active Directory node that you're looking for, and it can get you the listing of the ACLs. So If you type in DS Ackles for OU equals HR and then put in the domain information, AD Solutions, comma DC, you actually get the access control list. And down here it tells you that HD Text has the ability to reset passwords. See that right there? HD Text. Now, why is it important to report on delegation? Well, we need to analyze who else has delegations. And you will see for this HR, Human Resources OU, finance managers also can reset passwords. That is a major issue with regard to security. That means someone in finance can reset the password for someone in HR. This is where we report, analyze, and then we configure. We have to be able to look at this level of detail. Going through this security option is not a solution. We need a tool that can do it. Once we get it configured, then we need to have solutions that are going to allow us to see things that are in Active Directory. We need to be able to look at container permission changes. We need to be able to know when someone is changing permissions within Active Directory. Over time, right? OU permission changes right here. In the last 30 days, HR was changed. When? Oh my gosh, that was just a couple of minutes ago when I did it. This is a real-time reporting tool. Could I have an alert set up for this? You bet you could. What if I want to look to see in the last month what changed? I can do that. Okay? Last month, nothing changed. In the last 6 months, I have quite a few changes, and you see them all right here. Okay? So with the right tool, you can see things that normally you cannot see without the tool. And the configuration, step 3, is important, but if you don't monitor and alert after that, you're not seeing an ongoing security hardening baseline. You just know the last month on Tuesday it was secure, but you don't know today. And you got to know today because the attacker is not attacking last Tuesday, the attacker is attacking today. Now, one final area that I want to cover is service accounts. Now, service accounts are very difficult to get control of. Most organizations throughout the world have trouble with service accounts because we have auditors that are forcing us to consider resetting passwords for service accounts. We as administrators know that if we do not have full disclosure on where service accounts are configured, one change to a service account could bring down a multitude of servers and the services running on them. So we need to make sure that we get control of our service accounts and where they're configured. Now, we at ManageEngine wanted to create a solution to really help administrators and organizations with this. So let me walk you through a couple of things. First and foremost, we have to report, okay? Now, if I go to services.msc and I go to this log on as, you can see that I can report on all the services and the service accounts for every server. I can even from this point connect to another machine, and if I have 1,000 servers, 1,000 different screenshots or printouts, I can print this out. I can't imagine very many of you have ever done this. It's just too time consuming. So we have built for you a tool. It's part of our free Active Directory tools. If you come to our website, right, I'm going to go back to our website, and you go back to the ManageEngine landing page and click on Active Directory, you have related free tools right here. So the free tools are here, and the security hardening side is here, okay? So we're giving you these tools for your benefit. If you click on the service account tool, go to service accounts, you click on the servers that you want to get service accounts from, okay, and then get service accounts, you get a listing of all the service accounts for all those machines. But some of these are built-in default accounts that you don't care about. So we've also given the ability to filter, and right there are the two. So no longer do you have to struggle with reporting on where service accounts are configured on your Windows servers for Windows services. You have a free tool to do that now, okay? Secondly, now that we have reported the service accounts, you're going to make sure they're configured properly, and then we just monitor. How do you monitor? Well, we're going to go back to AD Audit Plus. And I have a report right here called Service Account Modifications, and I know when any service account is modified. Well, what are the service accounts? You get to define that. I just gave you a tool to report them, so you come in here, you create a custom report profile. I've already done that. And you say if any change has occurred with any of these accounts, for any of these service accounts, which you use the free tool to get, that's what shows up in the report. We are giving you solutions to harden your Windows environment very easily. I've gone through in this hour some of the most complicated areas of Active Directory, and I've given you simple solutions on how to do this. Now the crescendo here is if someone goes into a service account and they, heaven forbid, disable it, how do you know that? Today, you probably get a phone call from someone within the hour or day saying that they don't have access. Me, I get an alert, and the alert tells me that something went wrong. You can take immediate action on this. Remember, every alert can also email you. I really hope that walking through these examples is giving you ideas on how you can harden the security of your Windows environment better. I've given you a bunch of resources. The Security Hardening website. It's loaded with information, absolutely free to you. It's our gift. You have our blog, great information. I've also written a ton of articles for Windows security and Windows networking. Please go out and read those articles. There's over 10 years of articles on windowssecurity.com. That is my email address. Please email me with questions. I know that today we ran through some information, a lot of information in a short amount of time. This will be recorded and be available. If you come back to our website, if you email me, if you email the events team, we can give you that link when it's posted. There's quite a few other recordings out there that help you secure your environment, that gives you insight into Active Directory better than what you have today. Because we need to understand the different areas of Active Directory and how to secure them in order to get the right configurations. So we want to thank you for attending. And as kind of another gift to you, if you just go to our website, right? If you go to our website, every single product, right? Let's say you go to the auditing product. If you hit the link, you can download it. You get a free 30-day fully functional trial. I encourage you to go look at this. The reason I want you to look at this is you need to be able to see how easy these tools are to install and utilize. AD Audit takes you 15 minutes or less to configure everything. So what have we given you here? We've given you resources on a website. The website gives you full-blown everything about security hardening. We can't go over everything in 30 minutes, so we give you the website. There's also compliance information on that website for auditing and compliance. All the details of what I ran through today are on that site, giving you the ability to slowly go through them. We're going to give you this recording, and we've given you our emails to make sure that you can get communicated with us. Throughout the day, people have been asking questions. I kind of see them here, and I see that there's been answers. So if you want to see the questions that have been posed and the answers, please, they're out here. And we at Manage Engine, especially the 80 Solutions team, know your time is precious, and we hope that this has been very informative for you. If you have any feedback or have any input for us, please share that with us. And I know that your time is valuable, so we're at the end of our webinar, so I'm going to let you go and get you back to your day. Please keep a lookout. We are coming around in a world tour. I know that we'll be in Europe and many different countries around Europe in April and May. Please look out for those webinars. Those seminars will be live. And I just want to thank you for your time. Please have a great rest of your day. And for Derek, Melber, and the rest of the 80 Solutions team, thank you very much.